Welcome to Tokyo-Narita International Airport. We're here at Terminal 1 where we're going to be hopping on board ZipAir, which is one of Japan's new low-cost carriers, operates a fleet of 787 Dreamliners to a few destinations throughout Europe, and in 2021 they started service to Los Angeles. However, in late 2022, they started service to their second U.S. destination, which is where we're going to be flying today. So welcome to Tokyo as we fly from Tokyo-Narita off to San Jose, California. Now, San Jose has had Trans-Pacific service, actually has had service to Tokyo in the past, with ANA serving San Jose before the pandemic shut that route down. So this is not a new route, it's just the first time the ZipAir has came to San Jose. That being said, it's only the second destination they've served in the United States, and if you're unfamiliar with ZipAir, it started as a wholly owned subsidiary of Japan Airlines, with a goal of being a low-cost carrier alternative, with everything being kind of nickel and dimed on top of that, similar to the Spirit Airlines model, if you're familiar with that. So we're going to see just what the long-haul low-cost carrier model looks like. Now, one quick thing I will mention is you see the SkyTeam logo here over by the ZipAir counters, and while it does use counters in the SkyTeam area of Narita, it's not actually a member of that, so you won't be able to actually redeem your miles on SkyTeam carriers. So now getting into how much this flight costs, because it is truly a budget airline. Obviously everything costs extra, and if you look at their website and your booking process you'll see that, but this ticket today from Tokyo-Narita to San Jose cost me a total of $380, which included paid lounge access, one checked bag, and 2 in-flight meals with my economy seat. The seat itself was about $280, $300, and then I paid about $80 to $100 on top of that for my extras. With that taken care of, we're off to security and immigration, where everyone was so incredibly polite here at Narita Airport. The security guards, you can see, handed out individual packages of tissues, considering Japan is still very much in the thick of the pandemic, requiring masks, vaccinations, and all that. Once through security though, the first thing that caught my eye here, you can see here, is a DHL branded on half and Air Hong Kong branded on the other half A330 sitting at a passenger gate, even though it looked to still be a cargo airplane. Not quite sure what it's doing over there, but if you have any idea, let me know down below in the comments. As we head out here into Narita's Terminal 1, I will mention that Terminal 1 here at Narita is largely for international destinations served by Star Alliance and SkyTeam carriers. Once past the string of duty-free shops, the first thing that you'll notice is that there's a large amount of restaurants, all with plenty of seating options, in addition to lines out the door, so I'm assuming they're all of pretty good quality. That being said, I saved my appetite for the lounge food, and so next time I'm in Narita, I'll have to make it a point to stop by 1 or 2 of these places. Just past that, you're going to find a space with some day rooms and showers for all passengers to reserve. Showers are on a first-come, first-served basis, and the day rooms can be booked ahead of time by calling ahead. You can see the rates here posted just outside the door, pretty reasonable, and I did take advantage of the showers before boarding, so we will take a look at that a little bit later. Now, because this was my first time in a Japanese airport, I decided to wander around and see just what types of airlines and airplanes were sitting here on the ramp. I was able to get some good views of different types of Asian carriers, for the most part, all wide-body aircraft, considering that Narita is one of the biggest gateways to Asia to the rest of the world. And hiding on the left side behind that All Nippon 777 is the even larger All Nippon A380, of which I'm trying to get a flight on between Tokyo and Honolulu sometime later this year, so stay posted to see if I can make that work out. Next up in our adventures is the Narita TraveLounge, which is a paid access lounge that anybody can enter with a small fee. If you are flying on ZipAir out of Narita, you do have the option to prepay to enter this lounge, and they give you the voucher for entrance once you check in. Once you enter the lounge, you're going to notice that it is a very basic lounge. For starters here, you will see that there is actually some nice seating spaces. Although the lounge isn't huge, there's some private and some open spaces, some with views of the ramp, and some a little bit more enclosed so you can find your niche. That being said, it's never all that busy in this lounge, but it really isn't that big either. And guys, something I found truly peculiar about this lounge is that they don't even have their own restroom. If you are sitting in this lounge and you have to use the restroom or wash your hands, you are required to leave the lounge, use the restroom in the terminal, and then re-enter the lounge after. In addition to that, here you can see the kitchen with the hot food options. However, if you look closer, you'll notice that every option has a price tag on it. None of this food is actually free. If you do prepay for the lounge, you can get a free bakery item, but the main dishes you still have to pay for. So it's kind of just a restaurant that you pay to enter and pay for the food, which I wish I had known, because if I wanted cheap food, I could have just gone to McDonald's and gotten something there. The free options that they do have here do include the sodas, soft drinks, and coffees, but that's pretty much as far as it goes with your lounge pass. Otherwise, you're shelling out a little bit more money to get something. Here you can see when I checked in for the lounge, I got this claim ticket. On the left side, you can see it gives me one free bakery item or one free premium drink, such as a beer or something along those lines. So I decided that I would at least redeem that for something at this lounge, even though it wasn't going to be too substantial. Not to totally worry, because I had prepaid for 2 meals on board the flight, so I knew I'd be well fed, but definitely somewhat inconvenient from the lounge standards that we're used to in other places. I decided to use my claim ticket to redeem for a sweet potato pie slice, in addition to pretty much one of each of the free snacks. I figured if it's free, I might as well give it a try, so some crackers, some peanuts, and some little chocolates, as well as a cup of soda. That being said, the sweet potato pie, for my taste at least, was a little bit too sweet, but I can definitely see how some people would definitely like it. Now luckily I didn't really have any food that required me to use my hands, but because I didn't really feel like packing up leaving the lounge to wash my hands, I decided to just use my hand sanitizer to wash up, and then I would go ahead and eat the food that I had on my plate. One thing I will is that the lounge does have free Wi-Fi that's separate from that of the main part of the airport, and so if you do need a place to just relax and get some work done before you get on your flight, and somewhere that's a little more comfortable and less crowded, then this might be the place for you. After I wrapped up with the lounge though, I headed off to the shower suites and I checked in. Luckily there was still a few available, so I didn't have to wait for one. They gave me my pass and I headed off to shower suite 1. You can see here that they are pretty small, but in reality I just needed a shower, so I wasn't looking for anything big, and it accomplished everything that I could need. Now it is kind of just its own private entity, so don't expect any nice amenities with this. You do get a big bottle of body soap and shampoo in the shower, but if you do need any other amenities that you'd like, you're going to have to bring those from home or purchase them in the airport before entering the shower suite. Now it was time to head out to gate 23 to begin boarding. Now ZipAir doesn't have a specific part of Narita Terminal 1, instead their flights are kind of spread out throughout the terminal. This was our gate for San Jose. There was also a plane to LA and a plane to Singapore. This plane is ours here, an 11-year-old 787-8, originally delivered to Japan Airlines 11 years ago. One thing you will notice is that there's not great views from the gate of the airplane, and none of the ZipAir gates really did have great views. This is the best view I could get of the plane going to LA, and so the best view of my airplane I actually couldn't really get until we were in San Jose. So ZipAir really only boards in 2 groups. They have the priority boarding for those in the ZipAir lie flat seats, and then everybody else boards after that, which made for a pretty long backup considering they had to check everyone's documents. Once we did get our boarding passes scanned though, we were able to head down the jet bridge, and getting on the plane didn't take too long from that point. So like I mentioned, ZipAir's planes do have 2 cabins on them. They have a business class style lie flat seat, and then behind that they have a full cabin of economy seats. The economy seats are pretty much the same. You do have to pay to reserve a seat, and so the closer you get towards the front of the airplane, the more expensive they're going to get. But in a 333 setup, it's pretty standard as far as your 787 economy seats go. $47K is going to be our home today, which is a window seat in the back half of the economy cabin. Now, luckily enough for me, the middle and aisle seats ended up being free, and so I was able to stretch out across all 3 seats. So not being in one of the business class lie flat seats ended up not being the end of the world for me. Now, one of the first things you're going to notice when you do sit down in these seats is that there is no seat back entertainment screen at any of these seats. They do have personal device entertainment, so you can access it from your phone or your laptop, and there are charging ports for that. As far as the legroom situation goes, you can see here I'm 5'9" for comparison, plenty of room for your knees with a few extra inches. However, the footroom is a little bit constricted due to the life vest being underneath the seat. So keep that in mind, especially if you have a seat next to you. It does make it nice to be able to stretch out. The tray table is of the style that we're seeing more and more of nowadays, where it's kind of a bifold, where you can fold it out halfway or all the way depending on what you need it for at that time. And above that, you have a device holder. Basically, if you are using an iPad or your phone to watch the in-flight entertainment, you can prop it up on this ledge here, and there is also a spot for your drink. Below that is the button for the light and the flight attendant call button. So whether you're connecting to the in-flight Wi-Fi to get some work done or watching the personal entertainment options, there is a universal charging port and a USB charging port to keep your devices fully charged throughout the flight. Another thing that I liked here is when they add these compartments to the seat back pockets. I'm someone that likes to throw all my stuff in a seat back pocket so that I can put my backpack up in the overhead bins if space is available and really stretch out my legs. The other thing you'll find in the seat back pockets is some pieces of literature, for example this one that explains exactly when you can and cannot use different personal devices in flight. You'll also notice a brochure that talks about the in-flight Wi-Fi and entertainment options. One of the biggest things that you're going to notice looking at this is that the Wi-Fi is completely free on ZipAir's flights. You can connect to it. Now it's not the fastest thing in the world, but for free Wi-Fi on a transoceanic flight, basically unheard of unless you're in a super premium cabin. But once you do connect to that Wi-Fi, you can access different shopping and entertainment options as well as just getting some basic work done. Now the seats themselves maybe weren't the most comfortable things in the world, but plenty to get some sleep. The headrests also were adjustable, and actually the seats were pretty tall, so you did have some level of privacy for that, which I do like in the economy cabins nowadays. They do also have a recline feature, which is similar to the US domestic recline features if you're familiar with those, so it's not exactly the most recline in the world, but it does make that extra difference if you are trying to get some sleep on this flight. Now, row 47 is nice because you actually have two of the 787 windows, which are pretty large. Now, the 787 windows are a polarizing feature, literally. Some people love them, some people hate them. One thing that I have started to notice on all 787s is that the buttons have started to wear out, so I'm curious if Boeing's going to come out with some fix or if they're just going to start putting new covers on it, because it's starting to make these airplanes just look a little bit older than what they actually are. Now that I got settled in my seat, I put my backpack under the seat. This is as far as it goes though because of the life jacket being stored under the seat. So you see here, especially with that backpack there, you really do not have a lot of room for your feet. So if there is an open seat next to you, definitely take advantage of that to spread out here. Now ZipAir does offer in-flight duty-free shopping. They have the QR codes here to access the menu in Japanese and English. Unfortunately, when you scan the code, it just showed up that it was not found, and so I wasn't actually able to see what they had available. But they did come through the cabin delivering things to some people, so I'm wondering if it was just me and my phone that it didn't work on. Now visiting the in-flight entertainment system on this, you can see here connecting to the ZipAir Wi-Fi was pretty simple. You just had to put in some information and you were connected. Once you connect to the ZipAir Wi-Fi and go to wi-fi.zipair.net, you can see all the different options that you can get from your personal device, whether it be your phone or your laptop or whatever. Unfortunately, because this was before the flight, most of the stuff wasn't available yet, like the in-flight services and the Wi-Fi, but we were able to access the map, which was just the normal flight data map that you see on most airlines like United nowadays. Now it is kind of fun because a lot of the departures to the west coast of the United States were departing at the same time. For example, this DC-10 of FedEx was going to Oakland, and on the other side of me was an all-Nippon 777 going to San Francisco. So it was fun to race them across the ocean and see who won. And not that it's a competition, but we kind of blew them out of the water. Now both the San Jose and the LA ZipAir flights are timed out about the same. Here's the ZipAir flight to LA departing just right after us, and the return flight arrives right after this flight as well. And here goes that DC-10 to Oakland, so the race has begun back to the Bay Area. And as we climbed out, we made a turn and finally got Tokyo in sight, the actual city, right when we entered the clouds. And so I got a nice little 2-second view of the actual city of Tokyo, which I still have yet to visit considering this flight was just on a connection. Once in the air, I decided to revisit some of the in-flight entertainment options here. Now that the Wi-Fi was available, you can see here that connection was insanely easy. All you have to do is go back to your wi-fi.zipair.net, connect to the Wi-Fi, which is super simple, agree to the terms, and then from there you're connected and have access to everything you could need. That being said, I decided I would go ahead and check out what the speeds were of this internet, considering that a budget airline's free Wi-Fi couldn't be too good, and you see here the upload and download speeds, which are pretty low. However, it is free Wi-Fi on a transoceanic flight, so I was just happy to have that in my favor. Now I decided to check out the in-flight entertainment system now that we were actually in flight, and I did this one from my laptop considering it had a bigger screen. Now from there you can see basically just movies. There's not really any TV shows, and the selection, considering this is a budget airline, actually had some pretty good movies. Usually the budget airlines have lower quality movies, or at least a lower selection of movies. You also are able to connect to your Spotify account, although unfortunately that was not working on my computer today, but it did look like you were able to connect to your account to the Wi-Fi and access whatever music you'd like to listen to. Now, most of the 787's bathrooms are actually pretty spacious in my opinion. However, this is the one right in the middle of the cabin, which is a little bit smaller. However, you will see kind of the fake granite looking floors on the bottom, which was kind of their nice personal touch considering everything else in the bathroom was pretty normal. Now, just looking around the cabin, I will say that the lie flat seats were 100% sold out, and the front part of the cabin was actually pretty sold out in the economy section, but the further back you went, it just thinned out a little bit more and a little bit more. I chose that on purpose, considering I could get some space next to me and free seats and hopefully lie out and sleep, but like I said, the flight was probably only about 3/4 of the way full. So I am hoping that this flight actually survives, considering San Jose does like having the transoceanic service, but in the meantime, we're just happy with our 3/4 full. That being said, at least the 787 is an efficient airplane, and so it doesn't necessarily need to be completely full to turn a profit. Now that the sun had completely set on our 787 crossing the Pacific, it was mealtime. Now, ZipAir's meals are not free, unfortunately, so you can pay on board from what I understand. However, I paid ahead of time and chose my meals so that they had what I wanted. My first meal today was the Wagyu beef curry rice, and while the meat was a little overcooked and the curry was a little bit mushy, the flavors were actually great. The Wagyu beef still had great flavor, although it was a little overcooked for my taste, and the curry, although the texture wasn't exactly great, did have plenty of great flavor. Once I was done with that though, since there was only about 7 hours left in the flight, I decided to lounge out across my seats, get as much sleep as I could, and wake up on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. And good morning, the sun is rising here on the other side of the Pacific Ocean just off the coast of Oregon. Actually, the flight attendant came around to wake me up to let me know that it was time for the second meal service so that I could finish it before arrival. For my second meal service, I decided to go with a fluffy omelet. Now, if you know Japanese culture, you know that these fluffy omelets are actually quite popular. And I wasn't expecting a whole lot considering it was on an airplane and a budget airline nonetheless. However, the quality of the omelet was actually pretty good, and it did have that fluffy texture to it that you would expect in a restaurant. Not that it was necessarily restaurant quality, but as far as what my expectations were, it did far exceed those. One thing I find kind of fun about the flights that go from Asia to the west coast of the United States is that in a matter of about 5 to 6 hours, you watch the sun set, and then you watch the sun rise basically in the complete opposite direction. But it happens in such a short span of time considering how the plane flies. But with that, the California coast was coming into view. Here's Point Reyes in the North Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area, which meant that our final descent was upon us and we were about to be landing in San Jose. And as we descend over Crystal Springs Reservoir in the Santa Cruz Mountains, it was time to reflect a little bit on the ZipAir flight from Tokyo-Narita to San Jose, California. Now keep in mind that ZipAir is a budget airline, and so you kind of have to group it with the likes of the other transoceanic budget airlines, of which there isn't really a whole lot at this time after the pandemic. That being said, ZipAir did have some nice things going for it. The 787 fleet being one of them, it is a much more comfortable airplane than the 767s that some other budget airlines use. In addition to that, they did have a lounge, which most of them don't, even though the lounge was pretty bare bones. Now, the cost of the ticket was absolutely worth it. In my opinion, I paid $380, and that included the flight, the lounge, both meals, and one checked bag. The flight itself was about $250 to $300 roughly, so a great value for a transoceanic flight to California from Tokyo. Now, on board, the in-flight entertainment system wasn't great, but the fact that it had any in-flight entertainment system was awesome. And having free Wi-Fi is fantastic. You don't even hear of that anywhere unless you're in a first-class cabin transoceanic on some select airlines. So the fact that ZipAir had any free Wi-Fi is a huge plus. But by far, I think the biggest thing they had going for them was the meals. I think both meals I had on this airplane were fantastic, and I would have chosen them on any airline, let alone a budget airline. So would I fly ZipAir again? Absolutely. I think the bang for your buck is totally there. Is it as good as the other Japanese and even some US airlines? Probably not, but you're only paying about $300 for this flight, and I think the value that you get for that $300 is well worth it. So let me know down in the comments, would you fly ZipAir? What are your thoughts on ZipAir? Do you think the price is worth it? And anything else that you have from this video. That being said, sit back, relax, and let's go land in San Jose. And with that, welcome to San Jose Mineta International Airport in San Jose, California, which serves the greater San Francisco Bay Area. Now, one note that I do want to kind of leave us on as we taxi near the gate is that when push comes to shove, I'm just glad to see San Jose's transoceanic market recovering. International market didn't exactly go away, considering there was still plenty of flights to Mexico after the pandemic struck, but before the pandemic there was some 8 transoceanic flights across both the Atlantic and the Pacific. And so to see those recovering in small numbers, but still recovering, is nice to see, especially because it is a nice alternative to San Francisco if you are looking for a direct flight where there's maybe less crowds. Now the good news is we arrived in San Jose about 25 minutes early ahead of our scheduled arrival time. The bad news is that meant that since we were the first international arrival of the day, there was nobody at customs to greet us, since they actually had to hold us on the airplane for about 10 to 15 minutes while they scrambled the customs agents out to the CBP posts, and we were able to deplane from there. Now, we never did really get a great view of the 787, however the views here were at least better than Tokyo. We can see a little bit more of the airplane at least. But unfortunately, the gates they use in Narita and San Jose don't really afford the best views, especially when it's swarmed by catering trucks or jet bridges. But now this plane was turning around in about 4 hours and heading back to Narita, so you can see on the other side the gate area isn't completely full, considering that there's still plenty of time before it leaves, before it heads back across the Pacific Ocean. Now, one of the biggest pluses about San Jose being smaller than San Francisco is that customs doesn't take all that long. Even if you don't have global entry, there's about 10 desks of customs agents for one flight at a time, so you can get through pretty quickly, get your checked bag, and head out to the curb. Now, the annoying thing about connecting internationally in the United States is that if you do have a connecting flight, you do have to get your bag and go find your counter. So Terminal A is on my left, Terminal B is on my right, and you can go find your connecting flight and continue to wherever else your journey may take you. My journey ends here though, so thank you for flying ZipAir with me. Welcome to San Jose, California, and stay posted for some more videos coming up soon. Thanks.